The following video is one in a series on spiritual resilience training, a non-religious view of personal values and their dynamics with others. The contents reflect a variety of principles and practices of systems theory and relational counseling for team building and family resilience. Although the series is intended to support Army Corps values, each video also encourages the viewer to reflect on their current prominent values in specific situations and to consider what values may be more appropriate to means and results that are honorable and helpful with others. Chaplain Dillard initiates creating and posting these videos. Their contents and YouTube's linked videos do not necessarily reflect specific beliefs, practices, requirements, or endorsements of the Department of Defense, its subordinate organizations, or other groups with which Chaplain Dillard is affiliated. Welcome back. This is our conclusion of the series on working in multi-generational teams. I hope you've seen at least the introduction and one of the generations at least to see what we're trying to accomplish here, which is to have a better understanding of ourselves and others on our teams so we can work more positively and interdependently together as is appropriate for the mission of our team, whether that's at work, but this also applies to family and social groups and other applications as well. So let's take a look at some conclusions that I think we can draw together and some recommendations that may be helpful to you wherever you are. You see our 5 generations that we have reviewed here, the silent or greatest generation being known for their loyalty, baby boomers who are optimistic, the Gen Xers who tend to be skeptical, but that can be a very good thing, millennials who are very practical, and the revolutionaries who are innovative. The first thing I think we need to recognize is that all groups see themselves in the world somewhat differently, which impacts our work. I said it before, but I'm going to say it again. Just because we work in the same environment, at the same mission, dress similarly, use the same language, maybe have similar education, does not mean that all members of our work team see the world or themselves in the world the same way, especially if they have a different background such as a generation. It's important for us to recognize that, otherwise we assume that people think and perceive things the way we do. And when we make an assumption, you know what they say, you divide the assume up into 3 parts, and we tend to make a problem of ourselves because that's our misperception, right? So it's better to, rather than to assume, it's better to ask questions. Well, what do you think? Give me your perspective on this. And then not to automatically reject that as wrong because it's different from ours, but to ask questions, learn from each other, because a good leader or member of any team takes in as much information as possible before making a good decision. So they want to know the options, they want to know the angles, they want to know possibilities for the future, they want to understand the context. And we can't do that with groupthink, either assuming that everybody thinks the way we do or only listening to people who are like-minded to us. A second application is that each of us must acknowledge the reality of differences before we can act on them. And that's not just acknowledging them to ourselves, that's acknowledging them to the other members of our team. Hey, you've got a slightly different angle on things than I do. You come from a different generation, or you have a different background, you have different experience, you have a different skill set, whatever those differences are. And you bring something to the table that I can't see because I'm from a different background, a different generation. Let me know what you think. So that's not just acknowledging this to ourselves. This is acknowledging the differences to the rest of our team, a member at a time. Why is that important? Because that articulates out loud to the other members of the team that we value their perspective, that we know that they have a different background, different experiences, different values than we do. That elevates them in their mind from maybe they thought we were the leader and they're down here, and we're humbling ourselves. Let me know what you think, and we're raising them up so that we can connect. So that acknowledgement is to the other members of the team for the beginning of synergy, which we'll talk about later. Thirdly, leaders must cast a clear vision, otherwise their teams will work either by preference or by urgency. This is a truism to me. If we don't paint the picture as a leader of what our team should look like, ideally in the future, this is what we should be working toward next week, this is who we should be in a month, this is what optimal functioning for us looks like in a year, and doesn't have to be timelined like that. But if we don't have a goal for everybody to orient themselves toward, then they will either operate out of their own comfort zone. Well, this is what I like to do. This is what I'm good at. This is what I've done before. This is what is easiest to me. That's preference. And sometimes those happen to line up. Sometimes those are parallel with the vision of the group, but not necessarily. Now, it is certainly true that when someone joins an organization or a team, they have some understanding of the goal of that team, and so the very existence of that organization attracts people who want to achieve things that are in line with the goals of that organization. But the specificity of it, it's easy for us to get off track individually unless the leader clearly says, okay, this is what our section is doing. This is what our team is shooting for. This is what we do well, because that group over there in the same organization, they have a slightly different focus. They have a slightly different focus. If we don't articulate that, they're going to operate out of their own preferences, or they're going to operate out of urgency. Somebody that outranks us in their pay grade, the amount of work on their desk, what seems to be the most emergency type of work across their desk, because we're not setting priorities. We're not setting priorities for them. If leaders are not intentional to do this, people are going to do that out of preference or urgency, and sometimes that is very much influenced by their generation. You look back at the series of the generations here, and everybody has their own sense of urgency. For some, it is loyalty to the organization. They will do whatever they are told without question because they're loyal to the organization. But we don't need or even want yes men or yes women all the time. There's a place for that extreme loyalty. There are other times that we need somebody to be more skeptical, like the Gen Xers. There are people who value being innovative, and that can bring great creativity to the table. But there are other times we need them to toe the line and do it exactly the way we are told by our leaders, creativity set aside. Fourthly, leaders and members must inventory and leverage all strengths toward the vision. That's probably implicit in what I've said already, but an inventory, if you think about an inventory, that is writing out what we have and how much of it. So if we were very intentional to say, these are the specific strengths of our team, this person has an incredible education in this subject. This person has a broad scope of experience in this subject. This person has an unusual energy and commitment to the team. This person over here came from a different organization, and so they have an overlapping experience that can help us relate to others. We need to know that. Now, the individuals know that about themselves, but we don't necessarily know that about each other unless we have done an intentional inventory, because only then can we begin to leverage or to use, capitalize those strengths toward the vision. It would be like having a toolbox full of tools, but they're not in the toolbox. Everybody has their own individual tools in their pocket, and they know that they can use them. They know they use them well, but until we put them out on the table, we don't know, wow, we have the same tools. Maybe we can get together and help each other, or these tools complement each other. Wow, we are missing a crescent wrench, which takes us to our next point. We also, as leaders and members, must inventory and resource significant gaps toward the vision. Now, any good gap analysis looks at two things. Where do we need to be? Where do we need to go? Where are we now? I guess three things. And what is it going to take to get from here to there? What are the gaps that we have? That could be training. That could be materiel. It could be personnel. It could be trust between the leader and the team. It could be respect both ways. It could be any number of things. But until we do a gap analysis, we're not going to understand that. And different generations have different strengths and they have different deficits. Some are more lone rangers, and so a deficit would be collaborating with others. Some are more focused on excellence, and one of their deficits would be flexibility, downtime to focus on relationship, to kind of ease off on the accelerator to help a coworker who is struggling through something. If you look at any strength, the flip side of that is a deficit. Because it doesn't apply, that strength doesn't apply in every situation. And so we just have to be honest brokers about what is and what is not on our teams, and to resource those gaps, to help people grow in their flexibility, to help them grow in their willingness and desire to work as a team, to help them grow in creativity, or to help them grow in loyalty, or to help them grow in confidence in their leadership, which goes two ways, right? So we have to be intentional about this. Synergy, the concept of 1 + 1 = 3, or the total being greater than the parts, is only possible when we work interdependently in our differences. Now, I'm saying often the same type of thing, but in a different way. I want to be very intentional to say this. We want synergy, right? We don't want to just come together and be the sum of our parts. We want to be greater than any of us is individually or even together. And that can only happen by using our differences together. Think about any superhero team. If you think about them, they all have something different to bring to the table. One of them flies, one of them is strong, one of them can see through walls, one of them is fast, or whatever you would name. And they always work together, right? Think about let's make it more realistic. Think about any sports team. Some of them are really, really go-getters. They're not exceptionally talented, but they've got so much energy, and it's contagious, their enthusiasm, and that catches the rest of the team to motivate them forward. Some are particularly organized. Some just have raw talent, and they are Johnny on the spot when you need them. They can make it happen, but they really have deficits in other areas. We only work well if we work interdependently in our differences. No team, no sports team can succeed just because everybody is an incredible pitcher. No superhero team could save the world just because they're all strong. You got to have a smart guy. You got to have a scientist. You got to have somebody that can organize and lead, right? No family can succeed just because everybody knows how to cook or balance the checkbook or clean the house or raise the kids or anything else. We need each other. But we tend to flock together, birds of the same feather, right? We tend to group up with people who see the world the way we do. We can never achieve synergy that way. We've got to step out of our comfort zone and lean on people who are different than us, who see the world differently, and let them and encourage them to lean on us when they see the world differently than we do. Lastly, sustaining change comes by at least one key stakeholder's buy-in to a true paradigm shift. Now, let's take that in parts. A paradigm shift is a completely different way of looking at things. A baby boomer or a Gen Xer or a millennial or anybody else, they see the world a certain way. But once you begin to look at it from a different angle and to see, wow, everything in the world is not corrupt, or I'd never thought that there could be goodness in questioning the organization, or there can be some goodness in B+ work today so that I can spend some A- time with my family tonight. We never grow beyond where we are until there's a true paradigm shift in our perspective of our world. So that's what a paradigm shift is. Secondly, in order to get that paradigm shift going, you need buy-in, somebody who believes and is excited about the new perspective from a key stakeholder. Somebody who has interest in the group and somebody has the ability to influence the group. It has to be both. A key stakeholder is somebody who has a genuine desire to see the group to be better. And they have the power, whether it's authority or resources or contacts or money or talent or whatever, they have the ability to make some of that happen. Why are those two things important? Well, if they just have the ability but not the desire, it might just stay in their head. Or maybe they'll just do it by themselves but not involve others. If they just have the desire, they're like a cheerleader standing on the sides that really can't participate in the game. They want to get people excited, but they can't really run the ball down the field. That's not to devaluate cheerleaders, but we need both, right? We need excitement and we need talent, both applied. When you have somebody with both, when they are on board with the new paradigm, then things can begin to happen. So look at your teams. Who are some of the people that are more open-minded to other generations, that want to learn from others, that want to mentor and teach and encourage and equip others? Who are the people that the team respects and wants to listen to those people? And that those people also have skills and education and not necessarily a position of authority, but they at least have the respect in the minds of the rest of the team. That is a person, that's a key stakeholder that we need to work through, to have come alongside us and to work toward that new vision. This concludes our 8-part series on multi-generational teams. Again, this is mostly focused on work, but I think you would agree that these truisms and these suggestions and these dynamics apply to families, they apply to neighborhoods, they apply to leisure teams, they apply to any group of people that have generational differences that are working toward the same goal. Hope it's been helpful to you. Tune in next time. We will tackle something entirely different, and I hope to see you then. At the release date of this video, I am stationed with Research, Development, and Engineering Command, RDECOM, at Aberdeen Proving Ground, Maryland. Because the majority of our personnel are in this area, I spend most of my time here. I do, however, travel to our distant units based on command priorities and budget. I place these videos on YouTube for broad visibility to Army personnel and their families, but I hope the videos will be helpful to others too. If you are assigned to RDECOM and want to request specific topics by video, training on site or by VTC, or confidential counseling on site or by secure webcam, you can contact me at jeffrey.d.dillard.mil@mail.mil.